Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Emily if you don't already know me, and in today's video I'm just going to be talking about my birth experience and how my labour was. So let's jump into the video. So I was induced at 38 weeks due to having gestational diabetes, which is just diabetes in pregnancy, and I was injecting insulin 3 times a day, so that's quite a lot. So they had decided to induce me at 38 weeks just because GDM babies do grow a bit more faster. So I had an appointment to talk about scheduling an induction at 38 weeks, but they were really unsure if they were going to be 38 weeks or 40 weeks. Really wanted it to be 38 weeks just because I was so uncomfortable towards the end of my pregnancy. I was in pain all the time, and at the end of the day I was just over it. But I had talked them into allowing me to get induced at 38 weeks, thank gosh. So on Wednesday the 8th of July, my mum and I went into the hospital around the afternoon to start my induction and to get the balloon inserted. Now, a little funny story, I thought this was the balloon that would be going into my cervix, but this is actually what the balloon looks like. As you can tell, totally different. So we went in on the Wednesday, we went in around 12:30 and we were waiting for a while. Like, we hadn't been seen. I was on the monitor monitoring baby's heart rate just because they've got to monitor it before and after just to make sure everything's okay. So I was getting it monitored, and then I was in a room, like a shared room, but I was the only one in there, thank gosh. But then another lady came in and she got monitored, and then she went in before me and she got the balloon put in, and then she came back and then I went to get the balloon inserted. It was really uncomfortable because they stick like the 3 tubes to the side of your leg and you feel like you can't move your leg, nothing. So it's super uncomfortable. I got back to the room and I was getting really bad period cramps, and when we got back my dinner was there. I didn't really feel like eating, but I ate. I remember I got a really bad cramp and I looked up to my mum and I'm bawling my eyes. I'm like, mum, I can't do this. I can't do this. Like, I give up. Like, I'm not doing this. They had to monitor me again, so I had to stay on the bed and I had to stay still. But thankfully after that, Harley and I walked around and we walked mum out of the hospital just because she had to leave. And when we were walking around, I actually had the urge to pee, and we were on the other side of the ward, and I just decided to go to the toilet that's like in the corridor. I was too scared to wee because I had the balloon inserted and I didn't know how it would feel or anything. I just weed like normal, and I had massive pressure and I didn't know what it was, and then I felt a pop and I got really scared. So I called Harley in and he looked and he said that the balloon had fallen out, and I got really scared because that was only half an hour after I got it inserted. So we walked back to the room and it was quite funny because Harley's just like there waddling with like my balloon and I'm there waddling as well. And we got back and everything. Normally it falls out when you're 3 to 4 centimeters dilated. So my midwife came and she checked me and I was actually 3 centimeters dilated, which was insane. So I went from 0 to 3 in half an hour. So they sent us home because I didn't need to be monitored throughout the night. I was in early labor at home, but we had to go back to the hospital the Thursday the 9th at 7:30 because that's when they were going to actually start the proper induction and start me on the drip and everything. And they couldn't actually put the drip in because my veins kept fainting and I was so swollen. So we had to wait 2 hours for the doctor because he was in a meeting. So after we waited all that time, he finally got it in. First shot, we went through 3 people. No one could do it. Thankfully he got it. Once he did it, they started me straight on the drip. They didn't want to muck around or nothing, and that intensified my contractions so much more, and I was so scared because I thought I was gonna die and everything. I was on a Bluetooth monitor, thank God, so I was able to move around, but at that point I just wanted to stay in bed, so I stayed in bed. They left me there for about, I want to say maybe like 2-3 hours, and then they checked if they could break my waters, and they could. So they broke my waters, and such a weird feeling, like the gush and the warmth of it and how much there was and everything like that. It was insane how much fluid I had. So they actually give you 2 pads and a newborn nappy just to help absorb all that liquid when you're moving around and everything. And I went through 2 sets of them. So I went through 4 pads and 2 newborn nappies. But once I broke my waters, they kept upping the drip and got me to walk around the ward just to get it moving along. And they definitely got a lot more intense when I was walking around. But then they got too intense, so I went back into the room and they had me on the bouncy ball, and I didn't really enjoy that too much, but I really didn't want to be on the bed either, so I just stayed there and I was just eating some food because my blood sugar was quite low. Make sure my contractions were coming 5 minutes apart for an hour to announce that I was in active labor. So at that time my contractions were probably like 3 minutes apart, 2 minutes apart, 4 minutes apart, lasting like all different types of lengths. But I got into active labor on the ball, and Harley went down to talk to my mum because my mum wasn't allowed in the room with us, but she came down anyway, and so Harley went down to meet her and I stayed up there. And once Harley got back from seeing my mum, they decided to put me in the shower, and that was my active labor. I was in the shower for ages. I had my music playing and I had the water just hitting my belly, which made me really relaxed. And then my midwife's shift actually ended, so then I got a new midwife who was still amazing, and she decided to put me on the gas. And I was really looking forward to being on the gas in labor, but I actually hated the gas. The gas made me really sick. I threw up in the shower multiple times because of the gas, and I just felt like I was suffocating. I didn't really use that as pain relief or anything like that. So yeah, I was in the shower for a while, and then I was just sick of the shower. I was over it, and I got back onto the bed, and that was the worst part of my whole entire labor. I was falling off the bed almost. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. I was begging Harley to help me and to stop the pain and everything, and I couldn't do it, anything like that. And I also was starting to get really hot, and then I started to feel sick again, but they were really good and they put the aircon on for me. Then after about probably another 2 hours on the bed, I asked to be examined again because I had a feeling I was going to be like 7 centimeters, but they checked me and I was actually 5 pushing 6. And when I heard that, I was devastated. I was so upset. I thought I was further along and I had been in active labor for a while and I was just over it. So I decided to get the epidural just because I wanted my body to relax, and hopefully that would have sped up my labor and everything. They told me they weren't sure how long that was going to take. So 45 minutes later, the guy that does the epidural came in and he got himself ready, got myself ready, because you have to be on their side of the bed and everything. And he cleaned my back, and when they clean your back, you're actually not meant to touch your back because like they've just cleaned it and sterilized it. And Harley actually accidentally touched my back because I was in a contraction and he was trying to look after me. And I actually didn't feel the epidural at all. I felt the first needle that numbed your back, but that was like nothing really. But other than that, I didn't feel anything, which was surprising. So they were taping that up for a while, and as soon as I got it, it worked straight away, thankfully, because there's chances that it could just work on one side, not work at all, and I wasn't feeling any pain whatsoever. And then some time passes and I started to feel not pain but pressure down in my bum, and I kept topping my epidural up, but it just wasn't really doing anything. So I said something to them, but they were already checking me because Isla's heart rate actually dropped down to 80, so they weren't sure if that was the drip or not. So they took me off the drip just to see if the drip was interfering with her heart rate, and her heart rate ended up being fine once I got off the drip. So they put me back on the drip, and then her heart rate was fine for a while, and then I started to get those pains a lot more in like my bum area. They decided to examine me, and I was 10 centimeters and they could feel her head, so that was maybe 2 hours after I got the epidural. So that definitely relaxed my body and made my labor progress a lot quicker. Normally they check if you're 10 centimeters and then they decide if they leave you for another hour. All of a sudden I had multiple people in my room. They were setting up the little crib for Isla and the light and the oxygen, and the doctors were coming in and he was getting me to push and everything, and they had decided that they were going to set me up for an emergency cesarean. Now, I didn't end up getting an emergency cesarean. They just set me up for one just in case. So they got me ready for theatre. Harley had to go in his scrubs. I had to get transferred to a new bed, everything like that. So we're on our way to the theatre room, and then they do like a medication room beforehand where they get you ready. So they did a spinal as well. So I didn't feel anything from about under my boobs down. I did not feel a thing. My legs were so heavy, but it felt so good at the same time. So we were there for ages apparently. I don't really remember this. Harley wasn't allowed in the theatre room when they were prepping me, but once I was prepped they allowed him in. But when I got into the theatre room, I threw up everywhere into a bag because a really nice man was holding it for me. They ended up doing an episiotomy and a forceps delivery. So they got me to push a couple of times, and Bub's heart rate wasn't really enjoying the pushing, so it kept dropping, and the midwife asked the guy that was delivering the baby if it was going to be a cesarean, and he's like, no, we'll give her one more shot to push, and then if it doesn't come on this one, we're gonna have to do a cesarean. And Harley saw that and he's like, not happening, you're pushing this baby out. So we pushed, I think I pushed for it to me, it felt for like 5 minutes, and she was delivered. So baby Isla was delivered on the 9th of July at 10:13, and I remember them putting her on my chest, and I grabbed her head. In my head I'm like, oh my gosh, like this just came out of me, what the heck. And she actually had to get resuscitated, so they ended up rushing her over to another bed next to me kind of and everything. But once she was breathing again and pink, they brought her over to me and we did skin to skin, which was amazing. And then after we did skin to skin, they gave her to Harley, and Harley held her while they stitched me up and everything. I actually had a hemorrhage, so I lost 500 mils of blood, and I didn't even know that until like my 3-week checkup. After they stitched me up and all that, they took me to theatre recovery, and we were there for half an hour as they just checked me over, made sure I was okay to go back up to the ward and begin being a mummy. So we were there for a while, and then they took me back up to my room, which I got a private room, which I'm really thankful for. Yeah, so once we got into the room, they just checked over me, checked my bleeding, checked my stitches, and then they gave me an icy pole, which I loved. And Harley and I just had cuddles with Isla and just sent photos to our parents and anyone that we were telling, which we told a couple of our close friends, as I was also sending them photos of me while I had the epidural. My labour was about 13 hours long. I'm now 6 weeks postpartum and baby Isla is 6 weeks. So that was my labour and delivery story. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it means a lot to me. I'll see you guys next weekend. Thank you for watching.